Hey doing everyone, welcome back. Well, whole lot of talk about shootings. Whole lot of talk about shootings because of the one that just happened in Minneapolis. And of course, a lot of people are blaming trans people for so many shootings, and I've already done a video on that, and it was the one just before this. Um, so, I've already done that video. But what we're not talking about is how to stop shootings from happening, and we are too busy pointing fingers and blaming each other. We want to say, well, it's a red state thing, it's a blue state thing. Is it really? I mean, I just did some numbers just on the shootings within the past several years. Looks like there's about 270-ish, based on my math here. One took place in the Virgin Islands. 57 took place in purple states. 106 took place in blue states. 114 took place in red states. Now, that purple state number is going to be a lot smaller because there are just not that many purple states, right? So that's going to be a small number. Or the smallest of the, not a small number, but compared to the other two numbers. So with 114 in red states and 106 in blue states, that's close enough to say that there's no difference. There is no difference at all. Right? When you're talking about 8 out of, just those two numbers, if my math is right, that's 220. Yeah. Yeah, so we're looking at, 278, if my math is right, just kind of looking at it here, total shootings. But yeah, 220, and there's a difference of 8. It's not a red state, blue state thing. It is not a red state, blue state thing. Absolutely not. In fact, the most incidents happen in, obviously, California, because they're the most populated state, Texas, because they're the next most populated state, Florida, because they are the next most populated state, and then New York is next, but they are surprisingly low on the list. They are below states like Pennsylvania and Illinois, North Carolina, Louisiana. Louisiana is the worst per capita, when it comes to shootings. Right? The worst per capita. Now, I'm looking at just school shootings right now, just schools. I'm not even looking at mass shootings total. I might actually get into that here in a little bit, not in this video, but I might actually look that. But we've had, just in this century, we have had 574 school shootings. Now, by school shooting, first of all, let's clarify the definition of that. Gun went off at a school or a school event. Okay? Does not necessarily mean anyone was wounded or killed. It just means a gun was fired. All right? At a school or a school event. But still, 574 over 25 years seems to be an awful lot if you ask me. In that time, we have had 462 deaths from school shootings, 844 wounded, and of those 574 shootings, 16 of them were mass events. Okay? Now, what's interesting is the numbers have actually been trending downward a little bit in recent years, but if you go decade by decade, all right, let's start in the 2000 to 2009 decade, right? In that 10-year block, there were 88 mass shootings, right? 88. Or not mass, school shootings, excuse me. There were 88 school shootings. In the 2010 to 2019 decade, that number basically tripled to 259. Now keep in mind, we're about halfway through the current decade. All right, this is 2025. So since 2020, there have already been 283 shootings. So 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. We are in 25. Let's call that 5.5 years. In 5.5 years, we have about 25 more shootings already than there were in the entire previous decade. The entire previous decade. If we were to continue at the same pace, by the end of this decade, we would be at 512. 512. Just in one decade, when already just to this point there have been 574. Yeah, that's nice, isn't it? You know, and I've actually broken it down as far as the worst years for shootings in terms of the number of events and in terms of the number of deaths. The worst in terms of the actual numbers of shootings, and I'm just breaking it down with the top 5, right? 2018, there were 43 shootings. In 2022, there were 53, so difference of 10. In 2024, there were 56. 2023, there were 60, and in 2019, there were 61. So, you know, those numbers are holding fairly steady from about the 45 to 60 range, huh? At least over those few years. I mean, yeah, you've got 2020, COVID year and whatnot. Numbers went down. But in 2023, 39 people were killed in school shootings. In 2007, 41 were killed in 10 shootings that year. There were 10 shootings that year, 41 killed. In 2012, there were also 41 killed, but there were 12 shootings. So, I mean, that's slight difference there, but not really. I mean, in 2018, and in this particular year, there were 2 separate mass incidents. There was one in, I'm blanking on the name of the town in Texas, but there was one in Texas, and then the Parkland shooting were in 2018. So there were 43 dead that year. And in 2022, that was the year of the Uvalde shooting, Robb Elementary School. 49 dead that year. There are things we can do to stop this. There are things we can do. It does not include, hey, you know what, let's arm all the teachers. Does not include that. I mean, everybody says metal detectors, armed guards, arm the teachers. Okay. I'm not opposed to all of those measures. All right? But at the same time, there are things we can do that have nothing to do with just locking down the schools and making them fortresses. All right? There are other things that we can do. They don't violate the Second Amendment, but yes, they are on the gun front. And I will actually do a more thorough video on this. Because, I'm already running a little bit on the long side here. I'm at 12 minutes, and this program is a little bit strange. Sometimes it'll give me it only gives me 15 minutes like it will on this one. And sometimes it'll give me a little bit longer. But yeah, I'll get into some of the things that we can do. But yes, securing the schools, doing a better job of securing the schools is part of it. Arming the teachers is not part of it. And when I do that next video, I will explain just exactly why that's a terrible idea. Let's just say red flag laws, background checks, gun show loopholes, the ban of private sales. Those are some good starts, right? And I've actually got more thought out. But I wanted to run these numbers by you, right? And this isn't about blaming one community. The trans community is getting all the heat because they've had, it was a trans person who committed the most recent shooting, and then there was one in Nashville, was it last year or the year before, that was also a trans shooter. And like I said, you can point to a handful of events, but out of these 574, yeah, most of them were not trans. The vast majority of them were white, cisgendered men. Or boys. But, yeah, I'm going to break down just exactly what we can do. Not that anybody's going to do anything about it, because, they're getting that precious little gun lobby money, aren't they? Anyway, I'll catch you next time.